Why does Russian poet Anna Akhmatova remain famous even today, long after the world she inhabited has vanished into history? The answer lies in her work's profound ability to connect the personal with the universal. She wrote about her own life, her own heartbreaks, and her own fears. But in doing so, she gave voice to the silent suffering of millions. When political turmoil and state-sponsored terror descended upon Russia, many artists fled, fell silent, or were eliminated. Akhmatova, however, chose to stay. She remained in her homeland, sharing the fate of her people, and her poetry became a lifeline, a secret history whispered when official histories were filled with lies. Her life was tragically intertwined with the brutal politics of the 20th century. She was not a political poet in the conventional sense, with slogans or propaganda, but instead documented the human cost of political ideology. Her first husband, the poet Nikolai Gumilev, was executed by the secret police. Her only son, Lev Gumilev, was arrested and imprisoned multiple times during the Stalinist purges. Friends and fellow writers disappeared into the vast network of labor camps known as the Gulag. Akhmatova herself was officially condemned, her work banned from publication for decades, and she lived under constant state surveillance, a ghost in her own country. This immense pressure did not break her. It forged her greatest work. During the darkest years of Stalin's Great Terror, when her son was imprisoned and she spent 17 months standing in prison queues in Leningrad, she began composing her masterpiece, Requiem. Unable to write it down for fear of discovery and certain arrest, she and her trusted friends memorized the lines. The poem was a monument of grief, a lament not only for her son but for all the victims of the purges. It was an act of artistic and moral defiance, a powerful statement that art and memory could survive even the most oppressive regimes. Therefore, Anna Akhmatova stands as a symbol of artistic integrity and moral courage. Her story is a dramatic reminder that a single, determined voice can speak truth to power, even when it seems hopeless. Her poems are more than just beautiful words. They are acts of remembrance, preserving the experiences of those who were silenced. They tell a story of a woman who endured the loss of her loved ones, the destruction of her world, and the suppression of her art, yet who continued to write. She became the conscience of her generation, the keeper of its memory, and her voice, once a whisper in a time of terror, now echoes around the world. Anna Andreevna Gorenko was born in 1889, near Odessa, by the Black Sea. Her early years were shaped by the wild southern coast and later, the imperial grandeur of Tsarskoye Selo. Her father, a naval engineer, and her noble-born mother soon separated, leaving Anna to wander palace parks and lose herself in books. She began writing poetry at 11, sparking her father's disapproval. In pointed defiance, she took the name of her warlike Turkic ancestors, the fierce Akhmatova. Thus southern wildness, northern discipline, solitude, and self-rebranding combined to forge the identity of the great poet she would become. In 1910, Anna Akhmatova arrived in St. Petersburg, the vibrant heart of Russian culture. She married poet Nikolai Gumilev and was swept into the city's artistic circles. At the legendary Stray Dog Cafe, Akhmatova's magnetic presence and powerful poetry captivated audiences. She became an icon of the so-called Silver Age, her voice and vision forever shaping Russian literature. As her reputation grew, Akhmatova became a central figure in Acmeism, a movement that championed clarity, conciseness, and the tangible world, in contrast to poetic symbolism's mystical style. Alongside Gumilev and Mandelstam, she helped form the Poets' Guild, believing a poem should be as solid as a building. Akhmatova's poems were short, direct, and emotionally potent. Her style became the embodiment of Acmeist ideals. Her collection, Rosary, made her a national star, her verses beloved and memorized across Russia. But soon, the world she had captured in verse would be swept away by war and revolution. Anna Akhmatova's marriage to Nikolai Gumilev was a crucible of creativity and conflict. They were partners in poetry, but their union was tempestuous, marked by clashing ambitions and Gumilev's frequent absences. Akhmatova's early poetry transformed her heartache and loneliness into art, capturing the pain of a love unreturned. Their only child, Lev, was born in 1912, but the marriage soon unraveled, ending in divorce by 1918. In 1921, Gumilev was executed by the Soviet regime, a loss that cast a long shadow over Anna's life and work. This tragedy marked the end of the Silver Age and the beginning of a new era of suffering for her. Yet, out of this storm, her poetic voice only grew more powerful. As her marriage to Gumilev ended, Akhmatova's life was shaped by new loves and losses. Her brief, stifling marriage to Vladimir Shileko and her passionate, complicated relationship with Nikolai Punin became the backdrop for her poetry. Living in a crowded communal apartment, Akhmatova endured both political silencing and personal turmoil. Punin's repeated arrests during Stalin's purges deepened her suffering, blurring the line between private heartbreak and public tragedy. Later, her unrequited love for Isaiah Berlin inspired poems of fate and impossible longing. For Akhmatova, every relationship, fulfilled or not, became the raw material of her art. Love and loss were inseparable threads, forming the tapestry of her poems. Her friendship with Osip Mandelstam was a lifeline in a hostile world. He and Anna shared a fierce commitment to honest poetry, even as the Soviet regime grew ever more repressive. Their secret meetings, memorizing each other's forbidden verses, became acts of resistance. Mandelstam's arrest for his poem about Stalin was a turning point. Anna witnessed his persecution and campaigned for his release, but he died in exile. His loss was both personal and symbolic, the silencing of a generation. Anna dedicated herself to preserving his memory, haunted by his absence in her later work. Their bond had been more than friendship. It was a pact of survival and artistic courage. Through Mandelstam, Anna had become a witness for all those who suffered under tyranny. Gumilev's execution also marked her fall from grace in Soviet Russia. Labeled the widow of an enemy, she was shunned and silenced. Her poetry was banned for nearly 2 decades. Anna lived in poverty and isolation, watched by the secret police, as friends distanced themselves for fear of reprisal. Yet she refused to leave Russia, feeling bound to her people's fate. In secret, she continued to write, her poetry growing darker, bearing witness to collective suffering. Her art became an act of defiance, a hidden record of a silenced generation. Anna had become no longer simply a poet of love, but a chronicler of her nation's tragedy. Ironically, through enforced silence, she had found a whole new, even more enduring voice. The state's cruelty struck deepest through her son, Lev Gumilev. Marked by his parents' disgrace, Lev endured repeated arrests and years in the Gulag. Anna Akhmatova's life became a cycle of prison queues and desperate appeals, standing among countless women sharing the same grief. Amid that suffering, she realized her new purpose: to give voice to the voiceless, to bear witness for all mothers. The terror of her son's fate was unimaginable and fueled the creation of her greatest work, Requiem. She composed its verses in her mind and rehearsed them secretly, preserving them from destruction. In Requiem, Anna's personal agony merged completely with the pain of her nation. Through Lev's ordeal, her masterwork would become a lasting testament to endurance and memory. Living under Stalin's regime meant inhabiting a world saturated with fear, A careless word or wrong friendship could lead to arrest, torture, or death. Anna lived in constant vigilance, surrounded by suspicion and loss. Friends vanished, loved ones were taken, and her son remained imprisoned. Yet her creative spirit endured. Her poetry became her monument, preserving the memory of those lost to ideological terror. Throughout the Great Terror, she went on crafting requiem, in whispers, committing it to memory under threat. The poem was born from her nightmare of endlessly queuing outside Leningrad's prisons in the wake of her son's arrest. Among grieving women, she became a torchbearer for the nation's suffering. The poem evolved in secret, passed between friends, every written line memorized, then burned to ash for safety. It took shape as a mosaic of grief, Anna's sacred duty to the dead, and her personal testament to survival. The emotional core of Requiem is rooted in harrowing experiences of prison queues and gates. She paints a frozen world where women wait for news of their loved ones, enduring grief and silence. Requiem is both a psychological document and a historical record, preserving the torment of these women's sufferings. Through its details, Anna Akhmatova made the horror of the purges devastatingly real. A requiem is an act of naming and remembrance. In a regime that erased identities, Akhmatova insisted on memory. She captured the moral ambiguity and dehumanization of the times, with powerful lines like, "And I can't understand. Now all's eternal confusion. Who's beast and who's man?" Through now famous phrases like, "I should be proud to have my memory graced, but only if the monument be placed. Here where I endured 300 hours in line before the implacable iron bars." And, "I want to call you all by name, but they have lost the list." Her poem thus became the monument, not of stone, but of words, that honored the lost, a witness to their sufferings. Akhmatova's legacy of one who remembers and gives voice to the silenced remains a beacon for the oppressed everywhere. Yet memory is a double-edged sword, and many of her most quoted stanzas brilliantly encapsulate that painful journey of all survivors, such as, "I have a lot of work to do today. I need to slaughter memory, turn my living soul to stone, then teach myself to live again." In the most powerful section of Requiem, she compares her grief as a mother to Mary's at the foot of the cross. By invoking the crucifixion, Anna connects personal and national trauma, equating the pain of Stalin's victims with Christ's. This act of spiritual resistance reclaims religious meaning which the state had tried to erase. It also honors the sacrifice and love of mothers, which Anna says should never be forgotten. Anna Akhmatova's life was a testament to resilience. She endured revolution, war, and terror, yet remained in her beloved city, refusing to flee or be silenced. Her poetry became a time capsule of truth and memory, a voice for those denied one. Through tragedy, loss, and decades of personal risk, she never compromised her vision. Akhmatova proved that a single, unbreakable witness and their truth-telling could outlast tyranny, and outlast tyrannical decisions. She literally did. In 1945, after so much risky campaigning, her son Lev was finally released and came home to her. More than a decade after Stalin's death, Anna was even able to reunite with surviving pre-revolutionary acquaintances, when in 1965, Russia allowed her to travel to Sicily and England. On that final journey of her dramatic life, in an atmosphere of international vindication, she was honored with both the Taormina Prize and an honorary doctoral degree from Oxford University. In the spring of the following year, back in Russia, Anna died from heart failure, aged 76. Decades after her death, Anna's work has been translated into countless languages, her story of courage and survival resonating globally. particularly with those at the mercy of brutal regimes. With her own literary and memorial museum of artifacts in St. Petersburg, she's now not only a legendary Russian poet, but a universal symbol of artistic integrity in the face of oppression. Anna's life and work serves as a powerful reminder that art is not a luxury, but a fundamental human need, a way of asserting truth and dignity against forces that seek to deny them. Her influence persists because she addressed the timeless themes of love, loss, grief, and resilience, and found a way to progressively craft and preserve that work, even under scrutiny. Such rare poetry remains influential because it operates on both a personal and an epic scale. Readers are still drawn in by the intimate, relatable pain of a love affair ending, as described in her early poems. Yet at the same time, they are frequently awed by the monumental scope of requiem, which tackles one of the great historical tragedies of the 20th century. This ability to capture both the smallest detail of a broken heart and the vast suffering of a nation is the hallmark of Anna Akhmatova's genius. It has made her work accessible to those who know nothing of Russian history, while offering multiple fresh layers of meaning to those who do. For writers, artists, and virtually anyone who believes in the power of words, she towers as an inspirational figure, honored by many as the greatest poet of modern Russian literature. Her story also remains a lesson in the moral responsibility of the artist. She demonstrated that even when stripped of every freedom, a writer can still fight back with the greatest weapon they have, their voice. Ultimately, Anna triumphed over personal tragedy, political persecution, and the deliberate attempt to erase both her and her art from history. She was the voice of the Silver Age, the voice of the silenced, and the conscience of a nation. Her stoic creativity was never truly silenced. Instead, it was made eternal. Have you read Requiem or other Anna Akhmatova poems? What's your impression? Please tell us in the comments section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to help keep world literature alive.
Even brilliant creatives need heroes, and Anna Akhmatova deeply respected the work of Alexander Pushkin, romantic, duelist, and the greatest Russian poet of his time. His fascinating tragic story awaits you in episode 28.